Let me preface this by saying that I never thought I'd end up writing one of these posts. I used to scroll through Reddit, especially this sub, and think, glad that's not me. Well, here I am. I, 32M, have been married to my wife, 30F, let's call her Laura, for a little over 5 years. No kids, just us and a golden retriever who honestly has been more loyal than most humans I know lately. Our marriage wasn't perfect, sure, but we were stable. We both worked from home a few days a week, split chores pretty evenly, had a date night once a week. Nothing screamed something's wrong, until a new neighbor moved into the house next door about 3 months ago. His name is Eric. Late 30s, works in real estate, single, and a little too charming for his own good if you ask me. Laura met him when he was unloading boxes. I didn't think much of it, she's friendly, and I'm not the jealous type. But over time, I started noticing little things. She started dressing up more makeup, hair done, tight jeans, just to walk the dog. Weird thing was, the dog didn't seem to be going too far because she'd be back in like 15 to 20 minutes, glowing. Then came the random bursts of laughter at texts she wouldn't show me, and her phone suddenly having a lock code. She never used to lock her phone. I asked her about it and she rolled her eyes and said, "It's just in case I lose it." I'm not an idiot. I know people change, but this was off. She became distant. Sex? Dead. Conversations? Short. Her mood? Either overly bubbly or completely irritated with me for no reason. It was like living with a stranger who used to love me. I started keeping a journal, just jotting down small things that felt off. Nothing concrete, nothing to prove she was cheating, but enough to gnaw at my gut every night. I hate to admit it, but I even started checking her browser history. Lots of gym videos, she doesn't work out, and oddly enough, a few real estate blogs. Guess who's into that? Our neighbor. Still, I couldn't say for sure. I thought maybe I was losing it, maybe it was stress. I work long hours, maybe I was projecting something onto her that wasn't there. But something felt wrong, and it was only getting worse. I wasn't going to play detective. I wanted to trust her, I really did. But the more I tried to shake the feeling, the stronger it got. One night, I was supposed to work late. A project deadline had shifted, and I told Laura I'd be back around 10 p.m. She barely reacted, just mumbled okay and went back to scrolling on her phone. But I didn't work late. Something in my gut told me not to. I left the office at my regular time and parked my car 2 blocks from our house. I walked the rest of the way in the dark, heart pounding like I was the one doing something wrong. I slipped in through the back gate and noticed the lights in the living room were off. But there was a dim glow from the kitchen, and then, laughter. A man's laugh. I froze. It was him. Eric. I knew that smug laugh by now. I crept around the side of the house, heart about to explode. That's when I saw it, through the kitchen window, Laura sitting on the counter in one of my shirts, legs wrapped around Eric's waist as they made out like horny teenagers. I just stood there. Paralyzed. Betrayal isn't just an emotion, it's physical. My stomach dropped, hands went cold, and I swear I stopped breathing for a moment. It's like watching your entire life disintegrate in a single frame. They didn't see me. I didn't walk in. I didn't shout. I just walked away. I sat in my car for what felt like an hour, hands shaking. I could have stormed in. I could have dragged him out. But I didn't want to give her that satisfaction. I needed a plan. Something she wouldn't expect. Something smart. When I finally got back home loudly, this time it was just her on the couch, in different clothes, pretending to watch TV. "Oh hey, you're home early," she said like nothing happened. I looked at her and just said, "Yeah, project moved." She smiled. "Cool. I made pasta if you're hungry." This woman had my food on the stove after having her tongue down our neighbor's throat. And she was smiling like nothing happened. I knew right then, I wasn't dealing with someone who just made a mistake. I was dealing with a liar, a cold one. And this was just the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with him. In our house. On our kitchen counter. Wearing my shirt. It was like a scene from a bad movie that kept playing on loop. The next morning, Laura acted like everything was normal. She made coffee. Hummed while making toast. She even kissed me on the cheek and said, "Love you," before heading off to run errands. I didn't say a word. I just watched her go. I decided I needed proof. Real proof. If I was going to confront her and if I was going to protect myself legally, I had to be smart. So I installed a discreet security camera in the kitchen that afternoon while she was out. I set it to only record when it detected motion. That evening, I told her I had a late work meeting again. She didn't even pretend to be upset. I parked around the block, waited. At exactly 7:32 p.m., Eric's car pulled into our driveway. The same driveway I shoveled snow out of every winter. The same one she never let me park in because it blocked the view. He strolled up to the door like he owned the place. Less than a minute later, the kitchen light came on. I watched from the shadows of my car while they laughed and kissed like they were auditioning for a reality show. And just like the night before, she was perched on the counter, legs wrapped around him, shirt half off. It was disgusting. This time, I had it on video. When I got home later, she was in bed pretending to be asleep. I didn't say anything. Not yet. The next morning, I sat down across from her during breakfast and said calmly, "Hey, Laura, anything you want to tell me?" She looked confused. "About what?" "About you and Eric." She blinked. Her mouth opened slightly. Then came the lies. "What are you talking about?" "I saw you." "Are you spying on me now?" "Jesus, that's crazy." "No. I installed a camera. I have footage." She froze. Went pale. And then came the hysterics. "I can't believe you'd spy on me. That's a huge violation of trust. I feel unsafe in my own home now." That was her angle. Not denial, not apology, accusation. I stared at her. "You feel unsafe because I caught you cheating?" Wow. I didn't cheat. He just came over to talk. You're making something out of nothing. Oh, really? So your version of talking is making out on the kitchen counter? Silence. Then she screamed, "Fine. You want to ruin everything? Go ahead." I was lonely. You were always working. What was I supposed to do? There it was. The shift. From denial to blame. She tried turning it all on me. But I wasn't having it. After the confrontation, things at home got radioactive. Laura refused to accept responsibility. She shifted into full gaslighting mode, accusing me of being controlling, emotionally distant, paranoid, anything to make herself the victim. It was almost impressive how quickly she rewrote the story. And then she started the smear campaign. She told her friends, our mutual ones, that I had been spying on her for months, that I was emotionally abusive, and that Eric was just a supportive friend. She said I was concocting an elaborate lie to cover up my own insecurities. I found this out when my buddy James texted me. "Dude, Laura's saying some wild stuff about you. You okay?" Not long after that, I started getting the cold shoulder from people we'd known for years. Even Laura's mom called me, telling me she was concerned about my behavior. I nearly laughed out loud. Meanwhile, Eric? He vanished. Apparently Laura told him I was unhinged and might get violent. So the coward ghosted the situation completely. Classic. Now here's the kicker, I later found out this wasn't Eric's first affair. He had apparently hooked up with another neighbor 2 streets over and it blew up their marriage. He was known for helping lonely housewives with their needs, according to one of the neighborhood gossips. This guy was literally a walking red flag parade. But back to Laura. After the confrontation, she moved into the guest room like I was the problem. Said she needed space to think. Meanwhile, I was contacting a divorce lawyer and quietly preparing to get the hell out of this dumpster fire. I made copies of the footage, backed up every message, every voicemail, every threatening outburst she made in the days after. I documented everything. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get weirder, Laura invited her friends over for wine night. Yes, after she'd been caught cheating. She was in full-blown PR mode. And guess what I overheard? Them talking about how they always thought I was too boring for her. That she deserved to have fun and find someone exciting. That no woman should feel bad for following her heart. It was like watching a bad Netflix drama unfold in my own house. So I made a decision. The next day, I sat her down again. Calmly. Clearly. I'm filing for divorce. You'd think she'd argue. Apologize. Beg. Instead, she screamed, threw her coffee mug across the room, and said, "Good. Maybe now I can finally be with someone who actually listens to me." Unreal. After I told her I was filing for divorce, Laura did something that caught me completely off guard. She started crying. Not the guilty, ashamed kind of crying. The manipulative kind. The kind where you can almost see the gears turning behind the tears. "You can't do this," she sobbed. "I made a mistake, but we can fix this." She went from screaming and throwing things to clinging to my arm like we were in some tragic romance movie. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. "You didn't make a mistake," I said. "You made a series of choices." Repeatedly. Then she hit me with that line. "I don't even love him." It wasn't about him. It was about me. I felt invisible. Invisible. Ironic, coming from the woman who used to light up whenever I walked into a room. Who I took on surprise weekend trips. Who I supported when she lost her job. I guess all that still wasn't enough to keep her entertained while I worked to keep our bills paid. That same night, she started texting me long-winded paragraphs, saying she wanted to go to counseling. That we owe it to our marriage to try. That it was just physical. That she didn't mean for it to happen. Every excuse in the book. But I was done. What really pushed me over the edge wasn't even the cheating, it was her complete inability to own it. The lies, the deflection, the smear campaign, the performance. She was more upset about being caught than what she did. I gave her a week to find somewhere else to stay. She refused. Said she had just as much right to the house and wouldn't leave until we figured things out legally. So I stayed out of her way. We were basically roommates who avoided eye contact. Until one day, she made a mistake. I was in the garage looking for some old documents when I found a shoebox she must have hidden behind the storage bins. Inside were printed photos, yes, printed. Her and Eric. At a cabin. At a bar. At the lake. There were dozens of them. Some dated weeks before I ever suspected anything. And then, one with a date I'll never forget, our anniversary. The same day she said she was out visiting her mom. She had been with him. That was the final nail. I scanned the photos, added them to the file I had been building, and sent them straight to my lawyer. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was premeditated, sustained, and cold. I had my proof. But I still hadn't decided how I was going to end this. Not yet. After finding the photos, including the one from our anniversary, I knew I wasn't done until I looked this guy in the eye. Eric had been hiding behind Laura and avoiding me like the coward he was. But I wanted a conversation. No yelling. No drama. Just truth. So I waited. I knew his schedule by now: early morning jogs, usually around 6:30 a.m., always alone, always with his AirPods in. That Friday, I stood at the end of my driveway and waited until I saw him trot past. He did a double take when he saw me, slowed his pace, and pulled out one earbud. I didn't move. "Eric," I said. He stopped a few feet away, wary. "Hey, man. Man." He looked uncomfortable, sweaty in more ways than one. He glanced toward my house like he was checking if Laura was nearby. "We need to talk," I said calmly. He shifted. "Look, I didn't mean for any of that to happen, okay? I didn't know things between you two were that serious." "That serious?" "She's my wife," I said flatly. He raised both hands. "Hey, I get it. But she told me you two were basically separated. That you were living separate lives under the same roof. Classic cheater playbook. Rewrite history. Pretend it wasn't real." "You believe that?" He shrugged. "She seemed unhappy, man. Said you were cold, distant, always working." I almost laughed. "She ever mentioned the anniversary weekend you spent together? While I was planning a surprise dinner for her?" He didn't respond. Instead, he looked down and said, "Look, I didn't mean for it to get serious. I backed off when she told me you found out. I don't want any trouble." "Don't worry. You won't get any." I took a step closer, just enough for him to hear the next part without the neighbors catching wind. "But if you ever step foot near my property again or talk to her while we're still legally married, you will have trouble. Understood?" He nodded, eyes wide. "Good." And with that, I walked away. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want violence. I wanted peace. Closure. And that started with setting boundaries with Laura and with the man who helped blow up my life. The next day, I had my lawyer file the official divorce petition and serve Laura. She cried when she got the papers. Said she felt blindsided. Like she didn't see it coming. How do you not see a train you built coming straight at you? But the drama wasn't over. Because once word of the divorce started spreading, so did something else. Secrets. Turns out Eric wasn't just seeing Laura. There was another woman. And she was about to blow this whole thing wide open. After I served Laura the divorce papers, I thought I was finally in the home stretch. The storm had hit, the damage was done, and now I just had to rebuild. But then came the knock on my door. It was a woman, early 30s, dark hair and a ponytail, serious look on her face. She introduced herself as Melanie. The name didn't ring a bell until she said, "I'm Eric's girlfriend." I blinked. "Ex-girlfriend," she clarified. "I broke up with him last week when I found out about your wife." Turns out, Eric had been dating Melanie for almost a year, the entire time he was sleeping with Laura. She lived about 25 minutes away, and they'd spend weekends together at her place while he was playing house with Laura during the week. She said she found out after seeing texts pop up while he was in the shower. One from my wife. One from another woman named Kayla. Yes. Another woman. Melanie was furious, but not just at Eric. She was disgusted by how easily he manipulated women. She said he would tell each of them exactly what they wanted to hear. Told her he was busy closing deals every time he was actually next door with Laura. "I saw your wife's name pop up and Googled it. Found her socials. That's how I found out she was married. That led me to you." I didn't even know what to say. Melanie asked if I wanted screenshots of their texts. I said yes. What she sent me made my stomach turn. Eric had been sending Laura copy-paste messages. Flirty, sweet nothings, the same exact ones he'd sent Melanie. Same compliments. Same fake vulnerability. Even the same nicknames. I forwarded it all to my lawyer. Later that night, I confronted Laura one last time. I showed her the texts. Told her about Melanie. About Kayla. Her face drained of color. "He told me he loved me," she whispered. "He said I was the only one." I just nodded. "Yeah. He said that to all three of you." She broke down crying. Not out of guilt, but humiliation. It finally hit her. She blew up her marriage, trashed her reputation, and burned every bridge she had, for a guy who played her like a fiddle. And I wasn't there to comfort her this time. That ship had sailed. I slept like a baby that night. But karma wasn't done yet. Because what Eric didn't realize was, Melanie had a few more surprises in store. When Melanie came over with those texts, I had no idea just how deep the rabbit hole went. It wasn't just about Eric anymore, it was about a tangled web of lies, deceit, and public humiliation. She wasn't done yet. Melanie had already been in touch with a few of Eric's past victims before she showed up at my door. After everything went down between us, she started reaching out to some of Eric's exes, all of whom had been fooled by his charm, all of whom had fallen for the same act. And what she found? Well, it wasn't pretty. Apparently, Eric had been running this con for years. The guy was a serial cheat, manipulating women, getting them hooked, and then disappearing when he found his next target. A real estate expert who had no trouble selling his lies, but when it came to honesty, zero skill. Melanie, who by now had lost all her patience, decided to do something about it. She called up a local news station. The story she pitched? A man who used his charm and deceit to ruin marriages across the neighborhood. She included screenshots of texts, pictures, and stories from the other women Eric had hurt, and the local news ran with it. It blew up. The first segment aired that evening, and by the next morning, it was everywhere. Local news stations were covering it. Social media was buzzing. People from all over the city started sending in their own stories, women who had fallen victim to Eric's false promises and broken trust. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Eric's real estate business? Completely tanked. His social media accounts were flooded with angry comments. People posted reviews about how he'd ruined their lives. He was suddenly a pariah, and to make it worse for him, the police were starting to ask questions. Apparently, some of the women he'd dated had now filed complaints about harassment and emotional abuse. As the news spread, I sat in silence, watching the man who had been the source of all my pain get destroyed in real time. It was poetic, in a way. But I wasn't gloating. Because while Eric was getting the public humiliation he deserved, there was still another part of this whole ordeal that was making me sick to my stomach. Laura. It hit me that while I was seeing Eric's life fall apart, my wife was spiraling too. She had gone from playing the role of the betrayed wife to a villain in a matter of days. The news coverage made it clear that she'd been part of his deception, and her social circles, the ones she had once been so proud of, were turning their backs on her. One evening, I got a call from my old friend James. He sounded worried. You're not going to believe this, but Laura tried to get into the real estate scene after everything came out. She even went to Eric's office and tried to talk to his boss about getting a position there. I nearly dropped the phone. Did she really think that would work? James sighed. Honestly? I think she's just trying to find some way to rebuild herself after burning every bridge. But it's a disaster. She's losing all her friends, and now, even her own family is distancing themselves. I didn't care about her falling apart anymore. But the irony wasn't lost on me. She had helped destroy my life, and now her own life was falling apart because of her choices. But the worst part? The part that kept me up at night? She still wasn't sorry. Things finally started to settle down, at least, in my mind. I was no longer angry, just numb. Watching everything unfold, I had become a spectator in my own life. But as time went on, I realized something: I was still trapped in this nightmare. Laura hadn't given up on the idea of salvaging something from the wreckage she caused. It wasn't until a few weeks after the public fallout that she called me, trying to act all calm and collected. You need to meet me, she said, her voice shaking just enough to make me curious. I've realized things. I've been wrong. And I want to apologize, truly. At this point, I didn't know what to think. But I agreed, just to hear her out. We met at a quiet cafe. She looked like a ghost of her former self, her confidence was gone, replaced by a nervous energy I hadn't seen before. Look, I know I've hurt you. More than anyone should, she started, her eyes tearing up. I was selfish. I thought I could escape everything that felt hard, but I destroyed the one good thing I had. And now, I have nothing. I didn't interrupt. I just watched her, waiting for the catch. I'm sorry, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to fix what I've broken. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your forgiveness. For a split second, I felt a pang of something, guilt, maybe, or a sense of duty. I had been her husband. She had been my everything for years. But then, the reality hit. I had spent months being deceived, watching her lie through her teeth, gaslighting me, and justifying her affair. Laura, I said, cutting her off, what you did isn't something I can just forget. What you and Eric did was sick. But you? You turned into someone I didn't even recognize. You used me as an emotional punching bag and thought I'd just roll with it. You think a few words are going to fix this? Her face crumpled. The tears came faster, but the truth was, I didn't care. I love you, she whispered. Please, please, don't leave me. I looked at her, my heart hardening with each second. I'd been weak for far too long. I had let her dictate my life, and now, for the first time, I was in control. I'm filing for divorce, Laura, I said, my voice steady. It's over. You've made your choices, and now I'm making mine. Her face went pale. She stood up, shaking, and clutched my arm. You can't. You'll regret this. I swear, I'll do anything to make this right, anything. I pulled away, disgusted by the desperation in her voice. You had your chance. It's too late. And with that, I walked out. That was the last time I saw her. The final straw broke when the papers arrived. Divorce papers. I signed them, sent them back, and never looked back. It's been a few months now, and I've had time to think. A lot of time. Honestly, I've never felt more at peace. I moved out of that house, the one where everything fell apart, and started fresh. I found a small apartment closer to work, bought a new car, and started focusing on me again. It felt like I was waking up from a long, foggy dream, and for the first time in a while, I could breathe. The day the divorce was finalized, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But what shocked me the most was that as much as I had thought I would mourn the loss of our marriage, I didn't. Not even a little bit. I heard through the grapevine that Laura had tried to reach out a few times after everything was official. She was calling mutual friends, begging for forgiveness, but it was too little, too late. The things she'd done were unforgivable. Eric? Well, he got what was coming to him. His reputation was in ruins, and he skipped town after his shady business dealings caught up with him. I guess karma's real. A few weeks ago, Melanie reached out to me. She said she was doing fine, and I could tell she had genuinely moved on from the whole drama. We laughed about it, talked about the crazy mess it all had been, and agreed that the only good thing to come out of it was that I had learned who my true friends were. As for me, I've found peace. I've learned to trust again, but not in the way I used to. I trust myself. I trust my gut. I'm not afraid to stand up for myself anymore. I'm not looking for another relationship right now, but I'm not closing myself off to the idea either. I've learned that love isn't supposed to feel like a game. It's not supposed to hurt like this. I'm stronger now. Wiser. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm me again. Thank you for reading. This is the final part of my story. I don't know if I'll ever truly heal from what happened, but I'm doing my best. Life goes on, and I'm ready for whatever comes next. I hope this story helps someone who might be going through something similar.